All right. We are back, folks. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Mindful Mentality podcast. I am your co-host, Mr. Kaleb Rosenberg, and unfortunately, we are not joined by our other two members quite yet. They will be jumping on relatively soon, so I know that you guys are going to roast me in the comments for butchering the disclaimer. So let's just get that out of the way. We're here to help 1,000 people change their mindsets, break generational patterns, and just break the chains that society has put onto us and ingrained in our brains, this limited mindset. So again, our goal is 1,000 people. Please help us get to that by just sharing this with your friends and family and giving us just recommendations like you guys do, just DMing us topic recommendations, guests, anything. So we appreciate that. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get right into it. So today we have a special guest. I'm not going to butcher the intro as Daniel has kind of mastered that, but Miss Jamie Seeker, thank you for coming on today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. Hey, Kaleb. I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward to having a good discussion with you.
Yeah, so go ahead and just give the people kind of a rundown. Obviously, we know your background a little bit, but go ahead and break it down for our viewers as far as kind of what you do, kind of how you got there.
Sure. So my company is Seeker Solution, and I founded that about 6 years ago after probably about a decade and some change in operations. And if you are in kind of the busyness of just working day in and day out in operations, you kind of know that cycle. I would say that my boot camp learning time was during a recession. So I learned how to do a lot with a little in that time, and I think I was just kind of turning my wheels and not feeling like I was getting anywhere. And so I'm really kind of looking forward to this discussion today. What I do in my company now is I actually took a lot of those skill sets that I learned from my experiences in business and turn them into solutions for small and medium-sized companies. So along my journey, I kind of got a real love for small business and just the immediate impact that I was able to bring with my operations background, coming from a corporate mindset where you're just a tiny cog in a big wheel and feeling like you're not really doing a whole lot, even though you're running around all the time. It's like sprinting during a marathon. You're like, I mean, at this point, like, what are we doing here? So I loved the idea of being able to do a lot with a smaller business and affecting change immediately. So that's what our company does. And our solutions are based on just things that we've seen over the years that businesses and business owners really can use in their business to help them, such as human resource management. You know, you might not be the best with people, but you've got a great product or a great service, and you need somebody else to come in and manage that. So that's just an example of kind of what we do is step in and help with that.
Mm, yeah, and that your YouTube video, I watched the YouTube video, and that the editing on the YouTube video is first and foremost just phenomenal. It's a very clean video.
Oh, I don't know which one you're talking about, but I appreciate it. It's probably since I brought somebody else in to take care of that
Fair enough.
for not me doing it when I first started.
Fair enough. I mean, and it did give kind of a good breakdown as well. And I like that how you're kind of in that field of expanding entrepreneurs and business owners, of kind of those smaller scales. There's not a lot of companies that'll focus on just helping smaller organizations grow. So I think that's really cool. Mr. Will Campbell, can you hear us
Can you hear
okay?
me?
Yes,
Can
we
you hear me?
can. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I didn't think you guys can hear me because I was trying to I can hear you through I can speak through the mic, but I don't know what's going on with this thing.
Yeah,
I'm
my
trying to
headphones were
adjust it.
up as well. But
Yeah, I'm
man, new
adjusting it
week,
right now.
new week, new guest. Will, how you feeling?
How's it going? Nice to meet you, Jamie.
Nice to meet you too. How's it going, Will?
I'm doing good. So basically, sorry I'm a little bit late. It was the computer trying to figure this out.
Nah, that's okay.
Um, but yeah, so what did I miss out on?
Nothing really. We just got into the swing of things. Just gave the people a little bit of background. But I want to
Okay.
kind of just jump right into it. Just wanted to check in on you, see how you doing. So now that we kind of have the team here, so as far as when you saw like that need for opportunity, right? You know, you had the background. What was kind of that transitional point where not only you recognized that you had a service that could be beneficial to people, but also then transitioning to actually making that leap from the corporate world, because corporate's kind of like that safety net, you know?
Yeah, it was actually a very specific moment, and I think not a lot of people have the benefit of having those moments in life, and I actually do know exactly when it was. I had switched careers from the big corporate to a small business, and I thought things were gonna be different, and they were. But at the end of the day, it was my next steps were in somebody else's hands. So whether it was like corporate, I had a boss that, we had VPs and all, everybody overseeing everything, and you have to follow policy and the way of the corporation per se. And small business, it was different in the way that we operated. Definitely, but at the end of the day, my everything that I had to do went through a business owner,
Mm,
and rightfully so, right? Like, they own the business, they have the vision for it, and they had complete say of what they wanted to do next in their business, and if that didn't include me, like, that was fine, that was their right to be able to do. But I got to the point in my career where I was like, "Okay, at some point, I need to know best for my next steps and what I'm
mm,
gonna do." And I think I really wasn't sure. I think I was gonna fall back and look for another job. But what I had done at the time is I positioned myself and surrounded myself with other leaders and business owners that, being in an operations seat when I was managing that practice, it was actually a doctor's office. I was managing a doctor's office, and I was kind of alone I didn't have a peer group, right? Because it was a smaller
mm,
group, and I was managing doctors who were seeing patients, and then I was managing medical assistants who were assisting the doctors, but like I was the only one doing what I was doing. And so I always believe in, learn from somebody and teach somebody else what what you've
mhm,
learned along the way. And so I was a part of other like mastermind groups and things, surrounded myself with other business owners. And the moment that it happened for me was when I was starting to talk to them about, hey, we're kind of shifting, the business owner wants to go this direction. I'm going to kind of phase out of this. I'm transitioning her to be that point person, and she's going to manage more of the business and see less patients, and which is great. And so the feedback that I got was just so overwhelming from them. They were like, "Well, what are you gonna do? Like, how much do you wanna make? What kind of stuff do you wanna do? Let's
mhm,
have lunch. Let's." And I was like, "Whoa!" Like, I was all of a sudden getting pursued by people who could just snap their finger and create a position in their own company. And I was like, "Okay." Like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it really kind of got my attention because I do feel like I really try to be humble in what I'm doing, but I had to give worth to like what was happening. I'm like, I have something here that other people want in their own business, and I have to identify what that is. And so I
mm,
realized that I had a skill set, I had something to offer, and I had to monetize it. So when you say, okay, was there a moment? Yeah, there was, and that was it. And I sat down and I listened. I listened to what people were saying, like, and they were gonna pay me whatever I wanted to get paid. They didn't care what they were like, well, what do you want to do? They were gonna write my own job description for me. So I was like, okay, how can I make this work to where maybe I don't go and work for somebody else? Maybe I work with everyone. And so that's where that birth of Seeker Solution kind of came to mind. And also being in this group where we're sharing like businesses, obstacles, they're all talking about their businesses, and I'm talking about my stuff, but we're also giving and taking and learning from each other. So I think just being open and transparent and authentic for a couple of years leading up to that opened up the doors for, well, she's somebody who I like how she processes through stuff. I like that, she does have good solutions. And so it's a lot of just, it's not like one moment, like it was all the work leading up to it and then leading to the
mhm.
realization that, okay, I can do something more. And all of these people who I see as peers see me in that same light, and they're coming to me for advice and direction. And maybe I can start my own business and do this too.
And I like that that quick. I don't know if the audience was able to pick up on it, but a lot of us will kind of do all this work for so long and then kind of feel like that imposter syndrome. I know, I think Will had mentioned it to me before in the past, but just that feeling like, well, can I really do this? Can I really make this happen? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? But I like how you were able to recognize the hard work and the time and efforts that you've not only put in, but the skills that you've acquired. Because we'll try to, in our brains, we'll try to kind of reason why something shouldn't be for us or why it shouldn't work out in our favor. But I like how you were able to see, like, okay, no, like I have something that's valuable. I've been putting in the work. I do deserve this, and that's something we teach a lot. So I don't know,
Yeah.
what did you have something?
Yeah.
What did you have something?
Yeah. So I was gonna ask a question. So basically, you were working for a company and helping them first, is what you're saying,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and
yeah.
you wanted to branch off.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you are sitting in this, you hold all the cards and you have your own company, you can decide what direction your company goes at any moment. Like I
Mhm.
really truly believe that. And I think a lot of people forget that when they're employees. They're like, "Oh, can you believe this?" or "Can you believe that?" It's like, you know
Mhm.
what? You own a company then. You get to choose whatever you want to do. So I never felt like, "Oh, I can't believe this is happening to me." But I did have a moment where I was like, "Well, look, it's your right to make that decision, but I keep giving my right to you to
Mhm.
make that
Mm,
decision over my path, and I don't know why I kept giving it away." And
Yeah.
so there was that moment where I realized there's a lot of people that want me and my services and like what I can do, and they truly believe that I will be able to help their company go to the next level or whatever they wanted to do moving forward. So I had to decide, am I willing to take that back? And I
Mhm.
was at the point in my career, age wise, personally, like in my life, to where I was just ready to do that. And I don't think I could have been in the beginning. Like there's a lot of young entrepreneurs who haven't done it. My story is not that. I definitely had like, probably 15 years worth of work experience working for the man, like putting in the job, like doing corporate, doing small business, and really finding a love for what I wanted to do and figuring out these are things that I'm really good at. These are things that I had to do, but I just don't want to do anymore. And I knew that going into starting this. I didn't create a solution that I didn't want to do every day. I didn't put
mm,
together a service offering that I wasn't willing to like spend time on. And so that's why it's very specific. Here are the things that we work on. I mean, I love operations. That's where I kept getting jobs in operations because I am very efficient and I'm like, okay, what's the quickest way to get from point A to point B? And that is somebody's job to figure out, do you have process in place? Is it the best process? Isn't it going to be the most efficient so that you're not paying as much money because it's taking your team longer to do something? So those are things that I loved doing every day, but not every, I mean, that's a weird breed of people that love doing stuff like that every day. A lot of business
Right.
owners are like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm the creative.
Yeah.
I want to come up with ideas and I just want you to like figure out how to implement it. And I'm like, cool. That's what I love to do. So it's really just taking inventory on yourself, really
mm,
identifying what do you love to do. For me, I knew exactly what I loved, what filled me, and I like spending my time on it, and I created solutions to really set myself up for success because I didn't want to do it anymore. And that's how I wrote my own ticket. It was like I get to determine who I work with, when I work with them, and how and the way in which I work with them,
mhm,
which I never had before. And it was
Mhm.
okay. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said and learned for being able to like humble yourself and maybe know that their ideas or whatever your boss wants you to do isn't going to work out right. But then you have a free way to like prove that it didn't. It's not on your dime. You're like, I mean, I don't think this is going to work out, but this is what you want me to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to have a good attitude about it. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And hey, so that didn't work out. And then you get to like try your idea because that didn't work. And so I got to really hone my skills in a very safe
mm,
environment. And I think a lot of people don't recognize, a lot of those situations when they're in them. And
Mhm.
so that's how I kind of was able to start, I think, with a big leg up when I started this
mm,
whole thing.
Yeah. And a lot of these jobs, what I noticed working like after learning like systems and things, like a lot of them stuck in their old ways. Like they don't want to advance. Like they, and it's hard to get to them too as well. Like when you
Diggy,
want to speak to
stop.
somebody on the upper top level, And to change something in the system is like everybody's so used to that same system, they wouldn't want to change from it. And I had to deal with that in my last past job. Like it's just like this is an old system, so 1980, 1990s. Like what are we doing here? Like, and it just irritates you. And then they're worried about numbers all the time and having to fire people and stuff and things like that. But they wonder why. And like they had the clean house. Like when so many managers got fired, it was ridiculous because of the numbers and the inventory. Things weren't matching up right. So, and they wonder why because they're stuck in their old ways.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's really what we come in and do is we evaluate that kind of stuff and help businesses, figure that out. I think it's when you are in a bigger company and they have those systems in place already, it is so much harder to move and make change in that, which is why I fell in love with small business. And people are just so open and willing to they're wearing, a lot of business owners when they're growing, when they small, they do everything themselves and they wear all the hats. They're doing all the marketing. They're putting all the process in place. They're the HR manager. Like they wear every single hat. And so when you start to get bigger and you can't do it all, our job is to really help them figure out, okay, what do you love to do? Get them into that area. And we take on those areas that their gaps in. And so it's looking at, okay, well, you have this system in place. Great. Like, I'm not in here to tell you how to do it, whatever, like, just teach me about it. And so we ask those questions like, okay, so why do you do this? A lot of times they don't know. It's like, well, because that's how we've always done it. And it's like, okay, well, cool. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. And so that's where a lot of that solution comes into play is like, we're not just going to do something because that's how we've always done it. It's going to be very intentional. It's going to be very purposeful, and it's going to be the fastest way to get from point A to point B to get you through that process. And so, yeah, I think a lot of times when a process is in place, there was a reason for it before, and it might have been to make up for a lack of technology. So they had to have some workaround. So we had to do XYZ, and then they get that piece of technology and you still do it, but you don't need to anymore.
Right.
So anyone who comes in new, not knowing where they came from, they're like, why do we have to do this? And this is dumb. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, we have to do all this stuff that I don't understand. Or there could be things that like you don't understand why it's there, but on the back end, everyone on the back end knows why. And it's just a matter of like educating people and being like, hey, if you don't do this, this doesn't happen. And it's just connecting the dots and making sure everybody's on the same page and understands it. Because sometimes it is in there for a really important reason, but you just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I don't think it's valuable, but you have to do it. So it's just educating and helping people understand like, hey, this is why it's in there. And they're like, oh, okay, well, I'll make sure I do that every time. So I mean, those are some of the things that we find when we start looking at, process stuff, but I'm sure that's not what listeners are tuning in.
That's actually something that, I mean, we talk about it on a mindset base, but as far as kind of like our personal team, we're very big on software systems and processes because in the beginning of starting our journey, that was something that we lacked, especially Daniel and I, because we started out as Daniel and I, and then Will joined us about a year later. And that first year of Daniel and I, no systems, no processes, just everything's all over the board. I got notebooks with notes and just super messy. But then, I mean, ever since we joined with Will, I mean, we've been so dialed into systems and just thinking not just about the now. It's like the software we have now, we have kind of looked at it from a 30,000 foot view. What does this software look like in 10 years? Is it going to be outdated? Is there room to improve the software? Is there room to grow it? Is there room for advancement? So that's been a big thing for us, just to kind of see for the future. And then, like you said, it's about not just me knowing how to use it or just Will knowing how to use it. Our entire team and everybody that we work with through the system needs to know, okay, this is how it works. This is the reason why we use it this way. So yes, communication is a big thing with that. And something I wanted to ask, now that we're on the topic of solutions, is that when it comes to, I mean, now you've built this professional career as far as being just a creative problem solver overall. How has that transitioned over to your personal life, as far as being able to maybe think quick on your feet, or has there been any carryover?
Oh, I'm sure it has. I think when I was younger, I did try to like keep everything in its own little bucket and like, this is personal, this is professional, this is, whatever it is. And I just realized like, I'm so much more free now. I feel like I am who I am wherever I am. And it's not about like work-life balance. It's like, it's about work-life integration and like, how does it
Mm.
work for me? And I'm really, for me, I had to make this shift from wearing my busy like a badge of honor. I mean,
Ooh.
we walk around like it's a status thing, like, "Oh, I'm so busy." Like, and it's funny because 'cause we're actually talking about this and something else, like, I'm involved in right now, and I'm like, yes, like, I went through this journey of I was running, and I kinda talked about that, like, when I was running in the corporate, it was like all the time, go, 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 go. And it just wasn't the life I wanted to live. And so when I made the mindful switch to be like, I'm going to take control of my steps and my path, and I'm not going to run this race that they want me to run because they want me to be there. And like, I'm like the first one in, the last one out. Like, yeah, it makes them feel better, but I'm like, I don't need to do that. I need to put good systems in place that if I were to leave, it's okay. Like
Mhm.
a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest shift that I've had is just this, like, it's not a badge I carry anymore. In fact, I'm like, when I look at other people that are that busy and they're not happy about it, I mean, I lived a busy lifestyle and I was totally content with it. It was when I wasn't anymore that I was like,
Mhm.
I need to make a change and this doesn't work for me anymore. It doesn't work for my family anymore. And I will say that that is what has translated to my personal side is like, there's just this level of like, I don't know what the right word is. It's just I'm not so hurried. I'm not
Mm.
so, like, rushed to everything anymore. I have more time to just think and be, and I'm not, like even the way that I schedule my meetings now, I used to be like, "Okay, I have a 9 o'clock. That's done at 10, so I can schedule at 10 o'clock. Okay, that's done at 11, so I can schedule at 11 o'clock." I don't even schedule meetings that way anymore. It's like, "Okay, I have a 9 o'clock. That ends at 10. The earliest I will consider scheduling another meeting is 10:30,
Mm.
and because that just it leaves time for me to breathe. I can run to the restroom, I can get a drink, I can like, I schedule out lunch. Like, and there are just times where I'm like, ooh, I can't schedule anything during that time. That is, we've got things going on. So it's just I would say it is kind of a lifestyle change. It
Mm.
didn't just change for me at work taking that back. It changed for me running, everything that I've got personally as well. So I think it's pretty big. Like it changed my life really.
Yeah. I like what you mentioned about the work life integration thing. Like that's very important and I'm starting to realize that more trying to integrate everything because I have a family of 5 children, so it's like trying to balance everything is like you're playing a little game at first until you get it like organized and set in stone basically.
Yeah, well, I think then, Will, you and I can identify because once you have more kids than most people, we're definitely in that multiple kid parenting phase. And for me, I kind of had to. My family was growing. We have a lot of kids, and and I had to make a change. I couldn't get work couldn't be the priority anymore,
Mhm.
and I had to figure out a way for all of it to work in my life. I couldn't cut one out or the other out. I mean, as much as like my kids and my family are a part of me, it's my identity. So are my gifts, and so is what I choose to spend my time on. And I had a period of time where I wasn't working, and I was miserable. Like
Mm.
I'm the kind of person that needs to have some sort of outlet for my gifting. I need to be able to be utilizing all the time. It's like muscle, right? Like if I'm
Yeah.
not working out, like I'm not
Yeah.
working like my muscles are going to atrophy. And I felt that
Mhm.
way about like my giftings. And I think some people are gifted to like say, hey, you get to stay at home and make a home and be that can be. And I couldn't do that. That wasn't I mean, I think anybody can do anything, but for me, I felt a lack of, I wasn't doing everything that I could possibly do. I wasn't living to my best potential. And I feel like I am better. I'm a better mom. I'm better at home. I'm more productive even when I am utilizing my gifts for, I feel like, the way that they're meant to be. And so, yeah, I think it's really important to understand that it's a part, just as much a part of you as the people in your life, and integrating it into your life and not trying to balance one or the other. I mean, today, like, I had all the kids were in my room, like sorting laundry and like watching TV. And I was like, hey guys, like I got something I got to hop on. They were like, okay. But they knew like it was just as important for me to be sitting here with them and doing laundry, whatever we had to do, as it is to be here and like prioritize, hey, like this is something I want to, I'm going to be on this podcast and I want to, talk about this stuff. Like it's just as equally important. Nobody was like, oh, like, why are you doing this or da da da. It was like, okay, cool. Like it was an understanding. Like this is who my mom is. This is what she does. Just as much as she's my mom, she's going to be at our game. She's going to be, like I can count on her for this. It's because this is who she is. And I think if you're able to do that and be that person, you don't have to like put it in like work, personal. This is who I am here. This is who I am there. This is just who you are. And it's not something that just comes to you. You have to be intentional and work at it and make that decision to really, truly, be that all the time. So
Definitely.
And I think that also comes with just walking in your purpose. That's something that we tell a lot of people, is that you won't find the same fulfillment out of life when versus knowing your purpose and walking through your purpose versus just kind of going through the motions, doing life just kind of how it was designed to be, and not really taking the reins of your life. And so, again, that's just something that we talk about a lot, is when you walk through your purpose and you're doing something purposeful, you're not the only person who benefits. The people around you benefit mostly. So I love that. I mean, that's something that we just tell everybody. I mean, it's better to be walking in your purpose and be making half the amount of income than to be working a miserable job where all you do is just work, work, work. And a big thing as well is being present in the moment. I think a lot of times, especially with entrepreneurs, at least this was for my case, especially the first like 2 years, being able to balance between like, okay, I need to shut this off so I can actually be here with my family or with my friends that I haven't seen in a while, or whatever the case may be. It's very hard to shut that part of the brain off. So that was something that I had to recognize and just say, okay, I need to work on, whether it's walking my dog, not bringing my phone while I walk the dog, just when I'm with somebody, not looking at my phone at all, when I'm being just present in the moment with somebody. So being present, I think, is huge as well with that.
Absolutely. And I think that comes with, that mindfulness. Like you said, we don't just fall into that. Like you have to be purposeful about it. And I think, it's just like any goal. You look for, if you're trying to reach high levels of success, regardless of how you define it, you don't just fall into it. You have to train for it. You have to put a plan in place to do it, and you have to execute it. And I think that that's the difference between, what we do for a living versus like anybody else can do it as a job or something like that. And so, yeah, I think there's a time and a place for really throwing everything into your work. And I think, in the first couple of years, that's it. You just know what your expectation is too, right? Like, and I think that that's where we tend to go astray a little bit, is when we get into something and we think it should be something else, or we just don't have a realistic expectation about what it's going to be. And I think, that's one of the things that I've just really learned along the way, is that it can be whatever I want it to be when I'm driving the bus. This is what I want it to be. And there are things that I'm allowed to think and feel and do because I'm in it. But when you're not, you really have to just take it and say, okay, this is the job that I'm in. This is what I'm being asked to do. And this is what I'm going to do. And so it's either, accept where you're at or change. If you're not willing to accept the reality of it, then change it.
Yeah.
I know life isn't so black and white like that, like, oh, it's either this or that. There's a lot of gray in there, but at the end of the day, when you kind of strip everything back and you're not happy with your circumstances or whatever, then it's really just a perspective switch. It's like, well, okay, but are you being asked to do anything? Like, is this not what you got hired on for? Is not the salary you agreed to? Is this not? And it's like, well, yeah, okay, well then either you need to change your perspective and get on with your job, or if this is not what you signed up for and not what you need to change. You need to take steps to change that.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of the work that we do in every solution, I would say too.
Mm.
Coaching, or a lot of it's just perspective and setting clear expectations and agreeing that this is the reality of your situation, and that's kind of ingrained in a lot of our solutions. So that's
Yeah.
kind of came to mind.
That's perfect, 'cause I would definitely agree that a lot of times you'll see people who are not taking accountability, and I think accountability is kind of one of the biggest issues when it comes to knowing where, in obviously self-awareness, just knowing where you're at, and whether it's again being in a regular job or even as an entrepreneur or business owner, we have to be very realistic with ourselves and very aware of who we are. Like when you first start out, you want to be Superman, you want to be able to do everything to
I
the
do
T
this,
perfectly,
yeah.
and so you will do everything. I mean, trust me, I spent many, many hours, endless nights just building systems that I had no business building. I'm not a systems, like I know how to work systems, but I'm not that type of individual. Like that's not my personality. And so, but
Yeah.
again, starting out, you want to be able to do everything. And once I was able to let go of that, I mean, wow, like it's okay
Right.
to admit you're not good at something. Like,
Yes, it is. I
Yeah.
know, because it's like, you kind of do it as a survival mode, like defense mechanism, right? When you're in a job, because you don't want anyone to see fault in you, because you don't want to be expendable. And so you've learned how to just be like, oh, of course, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And I think when you don't have that anything threatening that, and you're the one that's like, at the end of the day, like, why are we still acting like this? I don't like to do this, and nor am I very good at it. So can you please like just come in? I'll hire you. You come in and do this. Great, thanks. And that's why I was saying to you, like, oh, your YouTube video looked great. Cool. Don't know which one you're talking about. I can guarantee you I had nothing to do with it, because that's not something I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Once I hired that out and handed it off to somebody who does love to do it, oh my gosh, like it's noticed. Somebody commented on like whatever it was, whatever one you're talking about. And so it's like, it's the same type of thing. Like, I am not good at leading people, but like, I know with all like everything in me that this is the business. Like, this business is going to be successful. Like, I can't babysit anybody or get them to do their job, or even like write a clear job description, but like, I know that this company is it. If that's where you're at, cool. You don't have to do that then. Why do you need to lead anybody? Just because you own the company doesn't mean you have to be the upfront like face person for it. Because not everybody's in that seat. So I think we just need to like get rid of the ideas of what we think things are supposed to be like. Look at what they
Mm,
actually are. And then if you are in that driver's seat, drive it to where you want to go. You get to set the tone. You get to define how it is. If you're not in that seat, really, truly like accept where you're at if you're going to move forward in your path. Otherwise, change your path. If you can't
mm,
accept the things that like are there for you and what that job is and what's being asked of you, that's okay. Like, you don't need to stay there, but just find a place that is going to be more in alignment with what you really want to do. But
mm.
I think a lot of our problem is just that in between. Is like, oh, I don't want to do this and I don't want to da da da. But like, cool, then I don't want to listen to you anymore, because you're not going to do anything to change it. So yeah, don't hire us if you're just a super yes person. Like, if you really truly are ready for change, it's not going to be easy, because it gets back to things that are ingrained in us,
Mhm.
of like, we don't even know we're doing it. Oh, I can do that. Oh, yeah, of course. Yes, I have that skill set. And knowing darn well, like, ugh, what's the one thing I'm procrastinating on? Why is it still in my inbox? Why haven't I touched it? Because I don't want to do it. Like, we don't admit that. But I think if we're talking about being mindful, let's look at why we do that. Why did we ever start doing that before? Are we still in that situation now. And, because not everybody is safe or free or feel like they can be open and transparent, I would just challenge you to do it anyway, because if you are not able to be your true self and really truly utilize the gifts that you have, that you've been shaped for, then it's not going to be fulfilling for you. And you're not, at the end of the day, like, that's not really going to be the best thing for the company either.
Mm.
So even if it's your own company. So yeah, I think look at really what's making you do that and the core of it, and maybe unpack some of that stuff, and don't do it alone, because it's tough to do. Getting that, you talked about accountability. I think getting an accountability partner, whether it's
Mm.
like an outside consultant like us, or if it's just like your best friend or your partner, whether it's in business or personally, I would say you always have to have somebody on your side that you can talk to. The reason why I got to where I got to so quickly and why I had that moment is because I had a tribe full of
Mhm.
people who believed in me, who already saw me as an expert, who clearly like wanted me to be in there. And I thought it looked a different way. I thought I was like going to like interview with them and work for them. But, after so many of them, I was like, well, maybe I could work with all of you, because I haven't been in business for this long to like not be smart about it. So yeah, I think, being your true authentic self and really like looking at what do you really want to do and how do you want to do it might lead you to someplace you really want to be. Because then you don't have to
Ooh.
settle for where you're at if it's not someplace you really want to be.
Mm. And I think
Hey,
that's. I'll go ahead, Will.
no, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think that's a circumstance that a lot of people are in, is that they don't like the situation that they're in, but they complain about it and not willing to take the accountability that they're the ones who place themselves there. They're the ones staying there. There's nobody forcing them, because at the end of the day, you have the power to change. I know there's a lot of people who have a lot more to lose. Like, I'm a young person, single, no kids. There's not a lot of things that I have to lose. But Will, on the other hand, 5 kids, a wife, and so there's more risk involved when he makes decisions. But I look at somebody like Will, and I'm like, he has never once had pushback on a business idea that I've had, or that Daniel's had, or a new step or process on doing something, whatever the case may be. There's been no pushback. So when there's somebody like Will, who has 5 kids, had a job when we started, was still working with us, still hopping on the phone with us, to me, that kind of proved like anybody has the true potential to change to a degree. Obviously, you can't, pick up your house or like pick up your life and move across country, but like you get what I'm saying. Everybody has that chance to change to some degree.
Well, and
Yeah.
to affirm what you were saying there, when I made the
Diggy,
decision
stop.
6 years ago, I am a mother of 7 children and I have a husband, and I was like, I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to get a job. Now, I know it's hard. It wasn't scary for me. Like, I didn't have fear per se. It was just this unrelenting, like, just this feeling, like this gut, like deep down in my gut, like I knew it was going to work out. Like I knew it was going to be okay. And I can't explain it. I wouldn't even necessarily encourage anyone to do it this way, but I was not going to be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Like, I'm going to try this on the side and ease into it. I just knew that if I was going to do it, I had to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like when my time was ending in my job, my safe, secure job, or so we think, until the boss changes their mind, right?
Literally.
I was like, okay, well, everyone's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to sit on this for a minute because I think I have
Mhm.
something here. And I know that not everybody's in that situation. I had my husband had a job. And so yes, it looks very, very risky because of everything else that I have to lose. I just knew, like, when I was betting on me, like, that was the ace in the hole. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's really that's it for me. I wasn't every other place. I was putting all of my cards into somebody else and like blindly following. But at the end of the day, it never really worked out for me. It did
Mm-hmm.
at the end. So here's another thing about me, I think that's unique about it, is that if you go into everything knowing like you're going to be okay, then whatever it is that you do is just kind of like, okay, how are we going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if you start with the end in mind and then you kind of go backwards, it just makes the fear and the obstacles and the riskiness seem whatever. So even though it looked like, okay, this looks really, oh, I'm so sorry, like you don't have a job anymore. And I was like, it's cool, like I'm fine, like we're all right. It might look like a bad thing, but I just feel like in my life, the way that I look at everything, like whatever is bad can be used for good. And if you have that kind of philosophy and that way of life in your mentality, then everything will be that way. It will be used for good. And at the end of the day, I look back and I'm like, that was the best decision that woman ever made for my life. So I mean, and I've had that happen to me multiple times, and every single time I've come out better and better. And maybe there are decisions that I might not have even made for myself because I am so loyal, or I am so, which like loyalty, if you were to ask somebody, it would be seen as a strength, right? Not a weakness. But I mean, I'm kind of looking at it as like, I never would have left these situations. I never would have left anything because I am so loyal and I am so driven and passionate about what I'm doing. And I believe in it. I don't do anything unless I believe in it. But because of that, I never would have done anything for me because I'm so loyal. And is that good or bad? Things that we think are good and bad, again, it's a perception. Everything's all our perception. So if you have this like perception in mind that all of our perceptions that we ever have are just to make us feel better about whatever we're doing. We feel more control. We feel more like at peace about something because like whatever, however we choose to look at it. I was never safe at a job, but I felt safe because I had a paycheck. I was never, it's not any different than me being in my own business now. I'm not any more safe or at risk because I'm a business owner. But it looks riskier on paper, right? It looks like a very risky thing. At the end of the day, I'm making more than I've ever made in my whole career as a business owner. I am spending less time than I've ever spent actually like working because I don't see it as work anymore. It's a part of my life. It's who I am. It's what I do. I have a love for it. I've never been happier. I've never felt more satisfied. I've never had any of these other things because of just that mentality that like everything is going to be okay. So even if we lost all of our clients, which by the way, we just went through that in our pandemic because we were all like, I was going to people's offices, everybody's office shut down. We got down to like 3 clients, guys. 3.
Wow.
It was so small. We had to, and then last year, 2021, we had the biggest year we've ever had in company history. Because it was like, you know what, guys? I'm going to keep all my staff on. I don't know how I'm going to make it work, but you guys, we're going to keep you on. And I just moved forward with that mentality, that mindful mentality that like, guys, we're going to make this work. I don't know how. That's going to figure it, like that's going to present itself along the way. And guess what happened? The government gave out the payment protection program here for you small businesses. You can pay your employees, keep them on. We want you to keep them on. We're going to give you a loan. And then after that, the loan is going to be forgiven if you qualify for it. I depleted all of my savings, all of my checking, got into my line of credit. It was completely depleted. I didn't know how I was going to pay payroll. And then I got approved for the payment protection program. So I promise you the government did not hire me the SBA is not hiring you to say anything. But we will say like we live in a great country that, the US put these things in place when we were going through a global pandemic, and a lot of us business owners didn't know what the heck that we were going to do. And I made the decision that I was going to keep my employees on and I was going to keep my doors open, even if we have 3 clients. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep doing this. And I got the deposit for that on like a Tuesday, and I had to pay payroll on like Thursday. So things like that work out for you, I think, when you set your mind to like do it. And again, I'm not going to ever like advise anyone or give anyone any kind of like follow this business model and I'm going to promise you like wealth and success. I'm just going to say from my experience, what I've done in having that mindset has never led me astray. And I've learned things and hit obstacles and have had to go through things that I didn't necessarily want to. but it has always worked out. And I think
Yeah.
clients would say the same thing. It's like they call with this just huge emergency, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, so how are we gonna da 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 da, and just kind of walking through it, and they're like, did you hear me? I just said, okay, well, we'll get through it. Like, and then I think it's like they've worked with us for so long that they start to adopt that mentality. Like, okay, we know everything's going to be okay. So let me tell you what's going on today, and then we'll figure out how to get through this. We're going to get through it together. And it's like, yes, we are. But it's a tough road to get to that point. I'm not saying it's easy. We've been practicing this for a very long time. So anyone that's listening out there, don't, if anything's standing out to you and you're like, yeah, but that's impossible, all you have to do is like one step at a time. Like, it's that we didn't just show up for game day and we're like doing life like this, making this. This was one foot at a time, every little bit, and it is difficult, just like any other practice, training for a marathon, training for any kind of anything. It's going to be tough work, but just know that you can get there. And no matter how your situation looks, whether you're single and seemingly free, or like shackled down with like the family and the spouse or whatever, it's so risky. I would just say, look, it looks that way because of our perception. At the end of the day, we are all free to make our own choices and our own path. And it's just, whatever you decide to take with you and carry on as that weight is going to make it easier or harder for you.
So like basically what gives you that push, that drive to like just know to take on something and you're gonna accomplish your goals?
That's a good question. I think at the end of the day, I don't have control of anything ever, and accepting that. And I think if you have multiple kids the way that we do, we understand that concept of like,
definitely.
because I mean, if you were to look at me, I am very much a type A personality. If you were to look at my closet, you would see that it's color coded and everything is like clean and like organized. But the second you walk out of my door, I have no control. I can never have anything nice. I can never and then we threw a dog into it. Now we got a dog. It's like, I have no control over anything that happens. I could raise my kids to be like this, and this. They leave my house and I'm like, my kid did what? So I think that really helps is to accept that like you have no control over anything. You can only control how you're going to respond to a certain situation, what you're going to do with your time and your energy, and that is really like what translates to the rest of my decision making, whether it's personal or professional. And like I've just decided that like I've had things happen to me that have just been like terrible. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? Like, whether it be in my career or anything. And it always had to do with somebody else making a decision that's either hurtful for me or, somebody else, because I already know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm not going to. I've already, like, the way that I've chosen to live my life, I'm not making harmful decisions for me. Sometimes, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I like my own stuff that I do. Sometimes I don't always cope very healthy, but I make that choice on my own. And so you know what I mean? Like, for the most part, it's other people making those decisions that affect me, and I get affected by them. And at the end of the day, my time and longevity and my experience has shown me that it is going to work out for the best. And so I can spend my time in that moment either. And I'm not saying I don't take the time. I've certainly cried when things happen to me. I have like been stressed out in the moment, but I don't stay there and I don't dwell on it. And I might take a couple of days or a week or whatever, like whatever time you need to like grieve whatever the loss that you had, whether it's like a future for yourself that you have to mourn or like the way, like whatever it is, a relationship, like whatever it is, take the time you need to really feel it and go through it because I think that's actually what helps me to move on with it is like when I act like, oh, I'm fine, which we kind of do when we're in that busy, you don't actually give yourself the space to like deal with it and like how you feel about it. So I would say like anytime you have obstacles, deal with those obstacles and really truly like be authentic with yourself and how you're feeling in that moment and address it, whatever it is, face it. And then from there, like I feel like it's either I can stay there and I can be miserable and I can spend all of my mental time like negative, like with that negative voice in my head, or I can spend it with a positive voice in my head. And
Mm.
I've seen that either way, no matter what I do, all it does is change my demeanor and my health. And it's like, okay, when I see my kids worry about something, right? Like they're worried about something, I'm like, okay, well, that worry, like you're worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. Um,
Mm.
do you want to spend your time until then in your worried state? Or do you want to come with me? Like, let's go get some ice cream. Let's go have some fun and see what happens then. Because we don't have any control about what is going to happen. If it happens, look, it's going to suck. Either way. So would you rather it suck from now until then and then it's still going to suck anyway? Or it's not going to happen and it's going to be great. And then you spent all this time worried about it when it never even happened. So for me, I'm very logical and I'm nothing but efficient. So and time is very important to me too, because I'm in
Mm.
operations, everything has to be efficient and we have to have the best way possible. But it's the same way personally. I don't want to spend my time. It doesn't make logical sense to me
Mm.
my mental time in that negativity and that worried state and that stressed out state when I don't know what's going to happen yet. So let's wait and see what happens. Because when it does, all it does is like either plan A or plan B. Plan A, cool. It didn't happen. We go along with our day. We already know what we're doing because we're already doing it. Plan B, think through it then. Think through, okay, what if it happens? Don't just have the fear and the negativity and think, and then stop there, because I feel like
Mm.
those feelings are important feelings, but they're really just red flags to get us to think, hey, something's happening here. You need to pay attention and then go, okay, so what is it that I'm afraid of what's going to happen? What if it happens? What then?
Mm.
Don't stop there. Think through what you're going to do. Think through it. Like put a plan in place, because I think a lot of us fear is there to stop us and like keep us safe, right? And it's not there to stop us and then just like don't do anything else. Like stop, pay attention. There's something here happening. You're feeling fearful about something.
Mhm.
Proceed with caution. So then, but proceed. I think a lot of us
Ooh.
we just stop
Mhm.
in our fear. So I think I mean, I know that that's a very long roundabout way of saying it, but hopefully you kind of get the idea is I've done it both ways. I've seen it both
Mhm.
ways. At the end of the day, I'd rather spend my time knowing that it's all going to work out, because I have never not had it work out. I still
Yeah.
Mm.
have a roof over my head. I have food on the plate. Business is coming in. I have my relationships with people. It doesn't always look like the how. People get so wrapped up in the how that they forget about everything else, like what's around them.
Mhm.
So if you
Yeah.
let go of the how it's done, how it happens, how it's supposed to be, then the rest of it really can kind of fall into place. And so I wouldn't
Yeah.
think that like I'm a very like blind optimistic person. I'm actually very realistic. But reality tells us like it works out more times than not. I
Yeah.
feel like people who are like, "Oh, I'm a realist." I'm like, "No, you're not. You're negative." Like you're not. Even though it's louder voice and it stays with you, it's usually like 1 to 10 of like positive things that are going on. We just don't really see it. So I would
Yeah.
can really be a true realist and look at the reality of the situation is it's going to work out for you.
Right.
Mm.
And a lot of those people that call themselves being realists, they kind of manifest the negativity by just being negative. So,
Um,
and yeah, they basically manifest it, and it's like it don't, no matter what situation they go through, they're gonna bring up some negative part of it. and
Mm.
and we was talking about that last week, I think, like about the
Yeah.
mindset on it, like how like when you start thinking something negative for so long, then eventually it's gonna happen. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard a really good example from somebody, and I use it every time. Is like, you think about it this way. If you're in a relationship, everybody can identify with this. If you're in a relationship with somebody, like, let's say if my husband is like waiting for me because he wants to go out and like we're meeting up with his friends that he hasn't seen in a long time, and I'm late. right? What is he doing in his mind? What is he saying? Like, oh, here we go again. We're going to be late. She knows how important this night is for me. Da, 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 da. How do you think he's going to be when I walk out? Like, it's about freaking hit, because his mindset in the time in between is telling himself negative stuff. Now, what if he, on the flip side, goes, okay, like, I'm super nervous about tonight. It's a really important night. Looking forward to it. My wife's taking a little bit longer than she normally does. She knows how important this is for me. I bet she's taking she's going to look fly when she comes out. Like, I can't wait to see her. I can't wait to show her off to these people. Like, oh my gosh, like, if we are a little bit late, it's going to be worth it. When we walk in, we're going to make an entrance. How do you think he's going to look at me when I walk out then?
A lot better. Turning a negative to a positive, basically.
It is. So it's what you tell yourself in the time in between, in the unknown, is really going to determine how you are going to affect the situation. Because you're not going to affect the outcome. You can't determine, like, are we going to be late? Are we whatever? Like, you have to rely on other people for that. You don't really know how it's going to be when you walk in, but you will certainly determine how you're going to impact that situation when it comes to you. So it's, what do we do in that time in between? And that's where you have to be mindful about, hey, I get a say in what I'm going to do to affect this situation moving forward.
And it does boil down all to perspective at the end of the day. And that's something that I know that when I talk to some of my friends, I've been helping them throughout the last couple of years, just kind of improve their mindset. That's kind of where we got the basis of a lot of this, is just practicing on people that we know. And one of the things that I've really tried to ingrain in them is when something negative happens to you, how are you looking at the situation? So, like, for example, I use this on the podcast all the time. A couple years back, no, it was actually like 2 years ago, I got into a car accident. Car was, if you look at the car off of pictures, it looks like, I mean, anybody in the car should have been dead. And so after that, I had gotten the accident, called my friend, he came to pick me up, and I was just calm the entire time, because I knew that as soon as everything had happened after the crash, and I kind of felt around, was able to get out of the car, and I was like, okay, I'm alive. Nobody's hurt. Literally, my car is just messed up because I hit a tow truck. And so I was just, it was a mindset to me where I was like, okay, I'm good physically. So, like, nothing else really matters at this point. Like, I have insurance. Things are going to get fixed. I'm going to get a rental. Like, there's literally, again, logic. There's no reason to be stressing. Like, it already happened. My car's already totaled. Like, I know it. And so he gets there and he's like, dude, I'm so impressed by how calm you were. And I'm like, dude, there's nothing. And again, I was like a year and a half into my personal development journey up until this point. So I'd been working on things like that. And he was just so amazed that I just kind of took it on the chin. But when you're able to do that, life, I've noticed, becomes so much easier. Not that life's easy by any means, but like, it becomes less heavy. Like, there's not a lot that stresses me out. I mean, I can get stressed out. Don't get me wrong. Everybody does. But when it comes to, like, negative things happening, to me, I'm always thinking, how can I look at this differently than what I would normally look at it as? Like, oh, this is bad. Oh, this is terrible. Why me? This happens all the time. I have terrible luck. Versus, like, what can I learn from this? There's something that you can always learn from any situation. So you might not be able to see the lesson at first, but you will be able to see a lesson or an experience or something. There's always something positive to take out. Like Will said, taking a negative and turning it into a positive. You can always do that. There's always a way. But again, you might not see it at first, but you will see it eventually.
Of course. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, and it sounded like you knew you were going to be okay going into that. And unfortunately, especially, I also have children that I have adopted out of foster care who their foundation in life has not taught them that everything is going to be okay. And so I definitely understand that that's not some easy thing that we just do. Is like, everything in my life and in my experience has shown me that everything is going to be okay. So it's easier for me to go in being like, cool, like, you had insurance. Like you said, not everybody has insurance.
Right?
So you went in, you're like, everything's going to be okay. Sure, I'm going to have to go through some stuff, but my car is going to get replaced. Like, I'm good. We're good. right? But think about all the people in life that don't have that insurance, not
Mm,
just car insurance. I'm just saying, like, their life has
yeah.
not shown them that everything is going to be okay. It's really hard to shift that mindset and shift that mentality. And so that's where the work comes in. And that's why it is hard. And not everyone can just step in and be like, oh, like, we found the secret to life. Like, here it is,
Mhm.
guys. Like, we just can take a moment to acknowledge that, hey, like, we're not saying that this is easy. We are saying that these are the fruits of our life now, that we
Mhm.
have practiced it for so long, and we've gotten to this point and we're actively using it. And just, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth doing the work for it, because the thing is, you're going to be doing the work anyway. It's just a matter of where is it going to lead you. And if
Mhm.
you're mindful and you're practicing this in a positive way, just wait and see what happens, to you. And so yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good example of something that I think everyone can relate to, with that very physical, like, you can touch it, you can feel it, you understand that
Mhm.
going through a car accident is, like, very, very real, because it is scary, and everyone responds differently to them. And I think that it's the same in life. Everyone's going to respond differently to the obstacles that we face, whether it's in business, whether it's personal, like, whatever it is that you're going through. And that's why, like, we all come from different places. We come from different experiences. We're all in different walks of our journey for it. Some people aren't even on one. Well, they are. They just
Mm.
don't know it. That's the thing, is we are all on a journey. Are you mindful of it, or are you not?
Right.
Oh shit.
Mm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's something, it's crazy to see the resemblance of, because we obviously do this every week, and typically 1 to 2 guests a weekend. And it's just crazy to me that when we go through like a lot of to talk about, regardless of the industry, regardless of their background, where they came from, typically I've noticed that anybody who's reached any level of not just success, but something, or to some degree of a meaningful life or a purposeful life in their eyes, has has gone through similar things, or has found similar things, that have worked, that do work. And just kind of the key principles, like that, it takes time, like you had mentioned. A lot of these things take time because it's a lifestyle. I think you mentioned that earlier, is that this is not just some type of momentary change. This is a lifestyle that you have created for yourself. And I know Will had said something a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you remember, Will, with Edie, and you guys were talking about just the difference of that survival mindset. And when Jamie just said that, how some people kind of come from different backgrounds and they're in this survival mindset, it's harder to break those chains. But I think knowing that, and it goes back to self awareness, knowing kind of where you're coming from. Like for me, I come from, not a lot of money, single parent household, which is nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of things that have been stacked against me. And now realizing that, I'm like, okay, I understand that there's a lot of things that are going against me. That doesn't mean that that's going to stop me. It just means I might have to do a little extra work or put in a little extra time to create that long lasting change, because of just the way I grew up. Similar to people who are in an even worse survival mindset, it just might take a little bit more time, a little bit more work than it might a different person. So that just reminded me of that when you mentioned that.
Yeah,
I'll
definitely.
say that, like, some of my worst moments and worst experiences have been used for the most good.
Oh,
So it's almost like, you it feels like cards are stacked against, which in an from an easy walk standpoint, sure, but you don't develop more muscle, more strength by walking the easy path. Like,
mhm.
your endurance is built, and like, you get into better shape, really, when you put on the incline and you put on the terrain and everything. Like, it takes more, that resistance really does shape you, I think, for better, so
Mhm.
it can be used for even more. So yeah, I think, sure, it can be easier, meaning it's not as much don't have as much experience to tell me that it's not going to work out. So I don't have to fight as much to get there. But, either way, it is, the path is the path, and it is going to take work. So if you're going to act like this is some easy stuff and I got it all figured out, then you don't yet. But I will just say, like, not, and this is something that keeps coming up in our conversation today, is like, not all bad things are bad, and not all good things are good. It's that things are things. And if we live in a mindset that I'm going to use everything, whatever it is, however it presents, to be my next leg up, to be my next like positive thing, anything can be used for good. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I've had a car accident story for sure. We used a car accident scenario to get ourselves out of debt. Like, we went down, I got in a car accident. We never would have like done this, but we ended up getting a check for the car. And at the time, my husband was working from home. This was before it was like a really big thing. I was working, but my kids were going to daycare like right near me. So it kind of was like, let's go down to one car, pay off debt, and like build it back up again. And it was like, I was pregnant when I got in the car accident. So that looks really scary. That looks really bad. Oh, now we're down to one car. That looks terrible. That's a huge inconvenience. But like, it was like, all right, when we stop to think about this is something that happened to us that looks really bad, what are we going to do about it? It was used for something really, really good. And it kickstarted us, because we had already been like digging our way out of debt. We made a lot of bad decisions, when we were young. And it was like, all right, we're going to change this. And even then, like, even getting yourself out of debt, the mindset change and the lifestyle change happens, but you still have consequences from the decisions that you made. So we were paying for ourselves to get out of debt for 10 years, even though we made the change 10 years ago. So then really like helped us to like catapult. Like, we took a big chunk that we got for this car, because it was a Honda. So it was like, yeah, we got a good insurance and paid off a lot of debt. And because we had already made that mindset shift, and we already had made that lifestyle change where we're not going to spend beyond our means, we're going to make better decisions. It catapulted us, and it really became a really good thing for us and our family to help get us out of debt and faster, because we had already been taking those steps. So that's the theme that like stands out the most to me when I'm looking back on our conversation, is just like, anything in your life can be used, however, like for your benefit and for your good. It just, how are you going to look at it, and how are you going to see it? Are you going to let your fear or your negativity or whatever stop you in your tracks and stop you from going where you're going to go? Or are you going to keep moving forward and using it to be like, all right, well, let's go. What are we going to do here? Like, let's be mindful about what we do.
Yeah, I like that, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say is that piece about just things are things, and looking at a situation as a situation, not necessarily good or bad. I think having that mentality of, this is the situation I'm presented with, what are my options? Because at the end of the day, you do have options, and I think sometimes we feel like we don't have options, and it's again that fear mentality that you're coming from, and being able to just look at a situation where, like you said, I love that things are just things, and it's not, good nor necessarily bad until you determine what that outcome is. And so being able to just look at a situation and say, what are my alternatives? What are my solutions? Versus, immediately thinking with emotion, because that's really easy to do. It's natural for the human brain to think with emotion really right away. So I do like that, though. I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest things our viewers can definitely take, is try to adapt that mentality where you're just looking at a situation from kind of like again, and not everything's black and white, but looking at a situation black and white, asking yourself, what are my solutions? What are my alternatives? What are my options? Versus, how do I feel about this right now?
Yeah. That's good.
Wow. That was that. And I know we're just over an hour, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But is there anything else, or typically what we ask our guests, if there's one thing that you had to leave our viewers with or our audience, whether it was based off of today's conversation or just something that you really want them to leave the table with, what might that be?
Oh gosh, we've talked about so many good things today. Hopefully we got a lot of that on their own. I would just say, you're exactly in the place that you want to be. And I know that's, I don't know what I mean by that is, and it was a lot about what we talked about today, right? I think what we tend to see is I talk to people who are like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they have a very clear vision of what they would like to do or be or go in the future. But when we actually break it down and look at, okay, cool. So what are you doing to get there? Let me look at your calendar. Let me look at where you're spending your time. Let me look at where you're spending your money. It does not align with their vision of where they want to be or go or do or whatever. So I would just say that the argument really is that you're exactly where you want to be. You're exactly doing what you want to do. And a lot of people are like, no, like I want to be married and I want to have kids. It's like, cool. What are you doing to get to that point? And it's like, well, I don't have any say in it. It's like, okay, well, let me challenge you on that. Where you're spending your time and your money and your energy, and is it leading to that? Or it's like, I want my company to be making this and I want to be doing that and I want to be doing that. It's like, cool. Where are you putting your resources and how are you spending your time? And so I would just challenge you to either accept where you're at right now and love it and enjoy it because that's where you really truly want to be. Like you're doing what you want to do. You're spending your money like exactly where you want to be. It's just that either you need to change your perspective and say, I am where I'm at. My company is exactly where I want it to be right now. And if it's not, then change the course of your actions. Make a plan and a strategy to change what's on your calendar, change what you're spending your money on, where are your resources going, where is your time being spent, because it's either you need to realign your action steps to meet what your vision is and where your goals are, or you need to accept that those are not really your goals. You just think they sound good and it's lip service. I think that kind of sums up a little bit about what we've been saying today.
Yeah.
Walk away with that actual applicable step, then that would be awesome.
Any book recommendations?
I am reading one, but I don't know the name of it, and it's all the way over there. But one of the things that helped me in my early career is the E-Myth. But of course, I come from an operations background. Good to Great. I mean, these are like oldies. And they really just talk about getting the right people on the right bus, and then once the right people are on, getting them in the right seat. Things like that. That's Good to Great, essentially. E-Myth talks a lot about scaling your business and looking at how a lot of entrepreneurs start off as they're professionals. They are good at a skill. So whether they're like an architect or a doctor or a carpenter or whatever it is that they do it really well. And so they've gone into business for themselves, but they still have that same mentality, whereas they need to be not in the business, they need to work on the business in order to grow it, and they can't figure out why they can't, but it's because they're sitting in too far into it to actually do it. So there's a really great principles in that book that I feel like I was utilizing, and I felt so validated and affirmed when I read it. I was like, hey, this is what we do. We help people to get out of that and to do it. But it's something that if you're not there yet, you're not ready to scale, but you kind of like that idea that it really can break it down, what you're doing and how you're doing it. You feel very exposed and called out, I think, as a business owner. So that's, like I said, those are oldies but goodies, and I think it lays a really good foundation for that.
Sure.
Also a good one too for business. So
have you read
check
the book Vivid Vision by chance?
Say that again?
Have you read the book Vivid Vision by chance?
I have not. No.
Okay, just some of the things you were saying, I'm reading it right now, so some of the things you mentioned really jumped out at me, where I was like, I wonder if she's read Vivid Vision. But it's a book about not necessarily how, it's about basically, as a CEO or business owner, you're creating this vivid vision of how your company is going to look in 3 years, but you're not worried about how you're going to get there. You're really just creating the vision, the feel, the look, the idea, so people can really resonate and feel and see in their own minds what that is. So it's a great read. I'm really shortcutting it, but that's a great.
No, that's it. That's great. And really, it's if you can empower others to get there on their, like, help them see the vision, but give them the freedom to get there on their own. Like, sometimes it's so much better than you could have ever imagined, like, doing it. And we all have. It's just celebrating everyone's strengths, and really that's kind of what we're all about in helping to, like, build businesses, and feel like we're all better together. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and I think that we're created that way so that we do work together because we need each other. And so it's like I said, I do think I give a lot more grace, and just in my experience of, like, oh my gosh, like, if somebody else were to look at some of the things that I had been through in my career, it's like, oh, like, I could very easily be the victim, right? Of, like, oh man, like, I can't, why does that keep happening to you? And I could spend my time going, why? And I have spent time doing that along the way. But I think, like I said, at the end of the day, what I've learned is I really need to back up. My way is not the only way. My way is a way, and it is a darn good way. Otherwise I wouldn't have my own business and be able to have that confidence to, like, branch off on my own. And I think that's, embrace that. I think as a business owner, entrepreneur, even just, like, anyone trying to get through the day, like, your way is a way, and it's a great way. It's not the only way. So if we can embrace, like, everybody else's different way, some ways are better than others. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, if it gets it done, and you're more focused on the results and what really truly is happening, it doesn't matter the way that it gets done. I mean, I think we have to learn that as parents, right? Well, like, I have a way in which I do things in my home. My kids do not do it that way. But if it gets done and I walk away and it's done, I don't care how they did it.
Right.
It's like, what I'm trying to teach them is, like, look, these are the things that are not negotiable. They need to happen. However they happen. And if you can do that in work, it's a lot harder to do in work, especially when you are paying people to do it. You want to move your way. But if you can be challenged enough and have enough humility to step aside and be like, who cares? Who cares what time they do it? Who cares what order it gets done? As long as it is efficient, it is just as, you're not losing any money off of it. They're getting it done, and they're getting it done well in the time frame that it's supposed to get done at. Who cares? Like,
right.
That's a really hard place to get to. And I'm not always there either. I'm like, what are you doing? And then I have to step away and go, okay, as long as it gets done, like, if they get it done in the time that I said, then we're fine.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about, like, we hit all the key points today. Control, mindset, your perspective, controlling your own response to things. That's really kind of, those are the big lessons that I've learned that have really helped me throughout my entire, having it translate, not just work, but professional, every aspect of my life. Those principles really translate everywhere.
Indeed.
Yeah, definitely hit the nail on the head with this one today. Oh my gosh, it was phenomenal. So how can our viewers, or just people in general, how can they connect with you, reach out to you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, we've got a website, seekersolution.com. I mean, that has the full everything. But if they're just looking for, like, little tidbits, we're on Instagram too, @seekersolution. Okay. And we've got reels that are really identifiable. We try to make them funny, like business, typical business owner, like, things. I think I find it really funny, but I'm not trying to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so funny. I do not control any of our social media accounts. That's all my girl Bree. She's brought a really good life to it, found our personalities. So you can reach out to us there. You can DM us. We're on Facebook, all the things. Email us, solution@seekersolution.com. The biggest thing is that there's no S in solutions. That's a common people. So it's just Seeker Solution. There's only one solution, and that's us.
Fair enough.
find us.
Good deal. And we'll
Yeah.
obviously link everything for you guys in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
But thank you, Jamie, so much for just sharing those gems. I mean, just so many gems dropped for the people today. I really hope that people go back and watch this one a couple times, because this one, it had basically everything you needed, kind of just summed up into a premium package. So
Yeah, good
there's
conversation. I'm impressed with you guys.
we're
Thank
trying to get by.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate it. We thank you so much for coming on, just sharing your knowledge and your experience. Guys, if you want any tips and any help at all just growing your business, definitely reach out to Jamie, and obviously we'll link all of her stuff below. But as always, we love you guys. We'll see you next week. We're only doing one episode today, so with that being said, don't forget to share it with your friends and family, and we will see you guys next week.